So thank you for joining the school committee meeting. We've already called the meeting to order. We went into executive session, and we are now going into the public session of the school committee meeting tonight. This meeting is recorded by video and audio in accordance with the state open meeting law, consistent with the governor's orders suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and banning gatherings of more than 25 people. This meeting will be conducted by remote participation. If you're calling in on phone, you can press *9 to request to speak. If you're watching on a computer or device, there is the raise hand button that you can tap or press to request to speak. Please use either one of these options during communications to be recognized. So we are here tonight for the purpose of getting public input on the plans that have been presented to this point as far as our options of reopening school in September. I'd just like to start by explaining, number one, that this timeline is being determined by the state. The state has requested that last week, or the week before, the end of last week, or the beginning of last week, or Friday before, that we had to submit our general overview of how we were going to do it. And now they're asking for us to submit plans for total attendance in school buildings, total distance learning, or a hybrid model, and also list our preference to how we might do that. And not only that, to do it for each grade level, not second and third, but elementary, pre-K, middle school, and the high school. And we have to submit that this week. That has to go in Friday. That does not mean by any means that this is it, that we are bound to this plan. We all understand that things change every day, and that the data changes every day, and things are all in flux. We also understand that we don't have all the information at this point that we wish we had. But it is our hope that we will have that as we go along. So the plans that have been presented and were discussed last Wednesday, and they're on record. They're also on view at the school's website. And as well as that, on the website, there's the opportunity for people to ask questions remotely. So tonight, we are here to listen to people's opinions, people's concerns, and to help us formulate how we are going to vote on this on Wednesday night. So with that being said, we will going to open up in a minute, we will open up the public part of this meeting. And I just want to read the rules about oral communication. The public shall have the opportunity to address the school committee meeting, to be heard under oral communications. Oral communications shall allow any resident who has a request or complaint of any nature relative to the school committee's business to appear before the school committee, state their problem without debate, and the matter may be referred to the proper subcommittee. For items, and this is about on the agenda, we're going to allow all discussion tonight as far as the reopening plan. Persons speaking under oral communications are limited to 3 minutes each and shall submit a copy of their prepared communication to the recording secretary. The school committee chair shall not allow complaints as to individual performance or character. So that being said, we will take people as, I have a list of everybody here, and as of right now, we have 220 attendees. And we have 6 that have already raised their hand. So we will be moving forward. Melissa, you had something you wanted to say before we start?
Yeah, I just want to first, and I'm sure others would join me in thanking everybody for coming on tonight. There's a lot of members, 220 and probably going up. But I just wanted to also thank the many, many, many teachers and parents that have reached out to us through email, as well as the comments that we're going to hear tonight. So I just wanted to recognize that and thank everyone, that's all.
Okay, so as we start, and I start to recognize people to speak, please state your name and your residence. And if you want to let us know whether you're a teacher or a parent or both, or a grandparent or a community member, that will help inform us on our opinions. So that being said, we're going to start with Ellen.
Jonathan, did you want me to put the timer up?
Yes, Grant. If you can put a timer up, that would be very helpful for people to understand the 3-minute issue. Also, if you have any, we don't have to start it. If you have a, as Melissa said, we have received probably 100 communications to the school committee in general, and some members may have gotten individual information, and we're in the process of trying to compile those so that we have some sense of how many and where they, what they're advocating for. So that being said, Ellen, would you like to go forward? Ellen Lehman.
I pressed the wrong button. I'm okay. I'm just going to listen.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Okay. We'll move on to the next person, which is Matthew Lewis. Matthew?
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Wonderful. Before I begin, the Gloucester Teachers Association has a joint statement, and we are respectfully requesting that the following people be called on in order if it is in your purview: Rachel Rex, Matthew Lewis, Eric Lee, Theresa Danaher, Beth Goldberg, Alyssa Dantonio, and Cynthia Carter. Would that be allowed?
I don't have a problem with that, without
Would you like
objection.
to read those names back?
So I'm trying to remember you wanted to start with Rachel, right?
Yep.
Okay.
And then Matt.
Okay, let's move to Rachel then.
Sure.
Rachel, are you, can you hear us? Because we can't hear you. So Grant, I tried to unmute her. What came up was something that said she had an older version of Zoom, and I had to promote her to be a panelist so she could speak, and then she disappeared.
She's a panelist right now, Jonathan. She just needs to unmute herself. Hello, Rachel.
Okay.
All right, I got the button. Could you hear me now? Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Good evening, members of the school committee, Mayor Romeo Taken, Superintendent Lummis, Assistant Superintendent Bach, teachers, and community members of Gloucester. We come before you to talk about the reopening of our schools. We all know that Commissioner Riley has asked superintendents to submit to DESE the 3 reopening plans, 100% in person, 100% remote, and 1 for hybrid. Ultimately, however, the GTA and the school committee will have to come to the bargaining table to determine the working and the learning conditions for the year. Statewide, hundreds, if not thousands, of parents have indicated that they have no intentions of sending their children back into our buildings, especially in their current conditions. Likewise, many educators are having a difficult time deciding whether their own condition or that of the people they care for may make returning to the school buildings too quickly too risky. This is why GTA members and other teacher unions north of Boston and across the state have demanded DESE call for an environmental health and safety assessment for every school building and tie the reopening of those buildings to public health benchmarks supported by the latest peer-reviewed science and data. Unfortunately, Commissioner Riley unilaterally terminated negotiations at the state level and left those problems for districts to solve on their own. And while we were only able to acquire those 10 days to start the school year without students and use this time to redesign learning to meet students' needs during a pandemic. Gloucester educators, like all educators, want nothing more than to return to their classrooms, to be with their students, and to provide them the best possible education. However, the same concern for our students' well-being and education, which pushes us to return to the physical building, is also pulling us to stay home for them and for each other, at least for a little while longer. As much as it pains us, current scientific data and public health guidelines tell us that it is not possible to return without hurting our community. Thank you.
Okay, so was it Matthew that was next?
Correct.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful, thank you. Good evening. The latest guidance from the CDC still holds that 6 feet is the necessary safe distance, even in a building with the adequate airflow, environmental health and safety conditions, and proper PPE. This 6-foot recommendation is also recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics, who says states and the federal government will need to help. Purchasing and installing updated air filter systems is beyond the capacity of most school districts, but is also an ideal opportunity to put millions of unemployed Americans to work on securing the future of our country. Since that is yet to happen, it's not yet possible to put anyone back in these school buildings. Despite recent claims by the federal government and our own Commissioner Riley that children, particularly younger children, are less likely than adults to be infected with COVID-19, and if infected, children may be less likely to transmit COVID-19 to others, new research released July 20th in the CDC's Journal of Emerging Infectious Diseases published a report out of South Korea that found children between the ages of 10 and 19 had the ability to spread COVID-19 within a household at the same rate as adults, but the rate at which they do is significantly lower. And on July 30th, the New York Times reported that a small study conducted at the Ann and Robert H. Lurie Children's Hospital of Chicago concluded that infected children may host up to 100 times as much of the virus in the upper respiratory tract as adults. Additionally, the study mentions that early reports did not find strong evidence of children as major contributors to SARS-CoV-2 spread, but school closures in early pandemic responses thwarted large-scale investigations of schools as a source of community transmission. Bless you. The takeaways from these studies are that we are just beginning to understand the role that children have in the transmission of this virus, and the more we know about the virus, the clearer the dangers of in-person reopening become, regardless of teachers' deep desires to return in person right away. We have to make the data-driven decisions. We, the members of the GTA, side with science, and I hope the school committee chooses the same. Thank you. I ask that Eric Lee speaks next.
Hello, my name is Eric Lee. I'm a Gloucester High School biology and biotech teacher, and I'm going to speak of the GPS healthy and safe buildings. We are deeply committed to returning to in-person learning, but only when it's safe. In order for us to reopen safely, we need to recommit to both a deliberate phased-in approach that gradually increases the number of people in our buildings over time and a promise to make the critical infrastructure improvements necessary. In most of our school buildings, a great deal of updating is needed to ensure that all who enter the schools are guaranteed a healthy and safe building. According to a 2014 master plan study on the GPS website, among other concerns, the following conclusion is stated that for each of our elementary schools, regarding the HVAC systems, in quotes, we recommend an overall HVAC system replacement for the building. We also require an increase in the general maintenance and custodial personnel according to a 2005 management audit services of the GPS by MGT of America Incorporated, which recommended 44 full-time equivalent staff positions. Currently, we have 31 FTE positions. Adjusting for Fuller School and the expansion of other elementary schools, we are still short of the 2005 recommendations for normal school time. However, many more would be needed for pandemic school time. In an anonymous teacher poll, we asked our teachers, what are your main concerns about coming back to the workplace? 74% of the respondents cited proper disinfecting of the workplace, and 79% of the respondents cited up-to-date and properly maintained building ventilation systems. For years leading up to the pandemic, the condition and maintenance of our school buildings has been a regular issue for discussion in our community. This pandemic has spotlighted the insufficiencies of our public education buildings. Now more than ever, our facilities need to be brought to a level that will ensure the health and safety of all the students, the staff of Gloucester Public Schools, and the rest of the community, since these students and teachers will be leaving from the school. Thank you. I ask that Theresa be called next, Theresa Danaher.
Jonathan, you're muted.
All right. Go ahead, Theresa.
All right. Hi. Good evening, Madam Mayor, school committee members, Superintendent Lummis, and Gloucester community. I'm Theresa Danaher. I'm very proud to say I teach 7th grade ELA at O'Malley Innovation Middle School. When we asked our members if 3 feet of social distancing is adequate, 80% said no. It's important to note, once a student leaves their desk and walks between rows, there is no longer 3 feet of social distancing. Governor Baker's regulations state that indoor gatherings are limited to 8 people per 1,000 square feet. A class of 20 students needs at least 2,000 square feet. Our classrooms do not conform to this regulation, and this concerns teachers and others greatly. The following are a few examples of teachers' comments when asked about returning to a brick and mortar in-school setting. I would return because I love my students, but will not be able to see my parents because of concerns of spreading the virus, and this would be a big sacrifice. Yes, but I am nervous because I live with 2 family members that are at risk, and I take care of my elderly mother who is also at risk with many health issues. I am high risk, but I am concerned about losing my position. This is my last year before retiring. I have survived another disease twice and just hope I can survive this year without contracting COVID-19. Yes, but I would be fearful of it. I live with my elderly parents with compromised immune systems, so I am very nervous. Yes, as long as ventilation in my room is adequate, and at the moment it is not. I would risk infecting a family member who has a documented immunodeficiency. I don't know how I would ever be able to bear that guilt. I have family members who are at a very high risk. I do not want to lose anyone I love, as I am sure many others feel the same way. I have a son. I worry about getting sick or dying from COVID and not being able to take care of him. Do not reopen schools. We are not ready, and no one should die because we opened them prematurely. If we can make it to the holidays with remote learning, we can all have hope for the scientific community to have a breakthrough given another 4 months. It seems such a short time when we compare it to sacrificing a life. Thank you for your time and consideration, and may I leave my position and give it to Beth Goldberg.
Okay, Beth. Beth, you can go ahead. You have to unmute yourself, though.
Thank you. Okay, I'll start again. Beth Goldberg, I'm a resident of Gloucester and a very proud music teacher of Beeman School. We know parents want their children back in schools and get back to normal life. However, the school day will be far from normal for students. Picture students sitting in desks, whether they're 3 or 6 feet apart, facing forward with masks on. They will not be collaborating like they once did during normal times. There will not be the passing out of papers or sharing of materials. There will not be lunch in the cafeteria where they can sit with their friends and chat. No social interaction like normal times. There will not be recess and playground use like there was in normal times. Our physical movement and mask breaks will be limited by how and where they can be held safely. They will not be able to see our faces when we smile, to name only a few. The regulations should be the same for everyone. Our students and teachers deserve to be treated with the same compassion as the general public. There are also questions. Will there be mandated testing before being admitted to school, like in many colleges and universities? What happens if there's a confirmed case in school? How will that be communicated? Will the class or the entire school have to quarantine? How will we do contact tracing? And who will be held responsible if someone does get infected and dies? Based on the numbers from August 3rd, we have lost 26 members of our Gloucester community COVID. 26 deaths may not seem like that many lives lost until it's your mother or father, sister, brother, son, or daughter. We do not want to lose more of our family members to COVID. So parents, when you are considering whether your child should be in this setting, and administrators, when you are considering what is the least restrictive environment for our students, please consider these points. Thank you, and I'm going to ask Alyssa Dantonio to continue.
Okay, Alyssa.
Hello, thank you for the recognition. Madam Mayor, chairpersons, chairman, and committee members, as well as Superintendent Lummis. My name is Alyssa Dantonio, and I teach in the history department at Gloucester High School. Once we reopen our schools, we want to keep them open. Rushing this process and putting too many people back into the buildings too soon will very likely cause the infection rate to spike and trigger another shutdown. This would only disrupt the learning process for the students and the planning process for families, and exacerbate the well-known inequities that existed in our schools both before and during the pandemic, not to mention endanger the lives of our entire community. It is clear we will never get 100% agreement on the right way to do this, but it's also clear that we can't afford to get it wrong. There's so much wrong with remote learning, both in terms of the crisis learning we were forced into in the spring, even with the most thoughtful and intentional planning. We know that this may be a hardship for families, and we hope that Gloucester helps to provide more support for parents who work and need daycare, or those who are struggling with rent, or who are dealing with another fallout from COVID. Unfortunately, Gloucester's buildings aren't safe enough to go back into yet. And the hard truth is that there is no hardship greater than the unnecessary loss of life. Thank you for your time, and I would turn mine over to Cynthia Carter, please.
Cynthia?
Members of the school committee, members of Gloucester community, my name is Cynthia Carney. I'm a 5th grade teacher at Veterans, a Gloucester resident, and the president of the GTA. I oppose remote learning as a curriculum in a box program that takes the professional teacher out of education and replaces them with remote learning and management software, as proposed by the DESE, and as an accepted way of learning during normal times. But I am in favor of remote learning if the alternative is to return to our school buildings in their current condition and under the social distancing parameters in the GPS preliminary plans for elementary. I support remote learning, as difficult as it is for teachers to implement, if it is designed by our educators in collaboration with one another as a way to resume learning safely. It is not lost on anyone that while the school committee may be considering not just one, but 2 plans that call for large numbers of staff and students to be in our school buildings in just over a month's time, this body continues to meet remotely. If 3 feet of distance is acceptable for our students and educators for 4 to 6 hours a day with masks on, then why aren't you sitting 3 feet apart from one another in the administration building conference room where you traditionally meet? The answer is obvious. because it's not safe. Not yet. I do not want to see yearbooks at the end of this school year with pages of in memoriams dedicated to the educators and students we may lose to COVID if we return to the buildings too quickly. I don't want to reflect back on this process and be complicit in rushing Gloucester educators and students back into an unsafe environment. I'll also never be the type of leader to tell my union siblings what is best for them and overrule the democratic wishes of our rank and file organization. This decision isn't mine to make in a vacuum any more than it is the committee's or the superintendent's. At this time, we feel that the only safe way to reopen schools and keep them open is to start remotely and gradually work our way to a full reopening based on the state's scientific data and public health benchmarks, very similar to the state reopening process. Anything else would be reckless, irresponsible, and counterproductive. So in the near future, our members will continue to debate the merits of each of these plans in an open and democratic process until we reach consensus as a union and in solidarity with our fellow union family members throughout our region and the Commonwealth. We hope the school committee will be just as engaging with us and the public over the next couple of weeks as our community must work together to fully reopen our schools in the best and safest way possible. I hope that all of you as well do not look back on this decision and wonder, if I had done something differently, how many people would still be alive? I thank you for your time, and I look forward to continuing these discussions in open and transparent forums that provide opportunity for honesty and confidentiality, where educators, parents, and residents concerned about these issues and how reopening may impact community spread of the virus can participate throughout. The stakes have never been higher. Not one single person should get sick or die because we opened the school prematurely. The only acceptable death count is 0. Thank you for your time.
Cynthia, does that conclude the union's list of speakers?
It does. Thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
accommodating our request.
Okay. The next person I'm going to ask to speak is Andrew Lewis.
Good evening, Gloucester School Board and all present. My name is Andrew Lewis. I have a sibling who is a teacher in 7th grade at O'Malley Middle School, and I am a proud nurse at Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center in Boston, Massachusetts. I want to play for you a scenario real quick before we continue this discussion of the importance of opening schools. Imagine you have a child who is in 3rd grade. Everything is going well. Imagine one day they come home and mommy is gone. Imagine them coming into the hospital and seeing mommy with a tube down her throat, a tube in everywhere else, and imagine mom is bleeding out of the eyes. Imagine a nurse has to come in and suction the blood out of mom's mouth and nose while mom slowly dies. Imagine bells, imagine alarms. Imagine this is your child. Imagine this is your mother. This is not something to mess around with. As a nurse, my floor was converted into a makeshift ICU to accommodate the influx of people who came from all over the Boston metro area. We had Gloucester residents who I watched die. We had 20-year-olds. We had 22-year-olds. We had 26-year-olds die violent and gruesome deaths that were completely preventable. School is important. It is important for kids to be together. It is important for kids to learn together and to build bonds together as they enjoy their education, as they enjoy what should be a peaceful childhood. I implore you to understand that if schools are reopened prematurely, there will be children who are traumatized for the rest of their lives. You will lose teachers who will die unnecessary deaths. No school in America is ready to reopen. That is point blank, and I understand. I have sympathy for Gloucester having to make hard decisions, especially as we understand that Gloucester is an economically diverse economically diverse city. Massachusetts is an economically diverse state. It affects different socioeconomic classes differently, and it will come for Gloucester, and it will come for Gloucester hard. There is no concrete data that says children are not carriers. There's no concrete data that says teachers will not be able to pass it to one another or to their students. You will have the blood of your citizens on your hands if you open prematurely. I say that completely honestly, and I say that with all of the anxiety in my heart, because I do not want to see your children suffer. I do not want to see your teachers suffer. I do not want to see your administrators suffer. I do not want to see anyone suffer unnecessarily. It's bloody, it's violent, it's awful, and it's preventable. It's awful to make decisions that will change the lives of your children, your parents, and all involved in the Gloucester community. But I refuse to let any other Gloucester administrator, educator, teacher, or citizen die on my watch if it's preventable. Thank you for letting me speak, and I do hope you make a right decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Kaylee Mion.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, I'm Kaylee Mioni. I'm a Gloucester resident, a teacher, and a parent. Tonight I'm speaking as both a concerned parent of 2 elementary age students and a concerned Gloucester public school teacher. I teach 5th grade at Veterans. I am advocating that Gloucester public schools start remotely with a phased-in approach when it is safe to do so for everyone. Here is why I feel this way. At a time when cases of the virus are rising, how can we ensure that our students will be safe? I find it unacceptable that Gloucester is considering using 3-foot distancing instead of the recommended 6-foot distancing that we have been told for months is most effective. As a parent of a 1st grader, I am extremely concerned that my child would be in a room where masks are not required and children would only be separated by 3 feet. If students were to return in-person learning, the bubbles of students that the district is creating would be mixed with other bubbles. You would have different kids riding the bus together, using the same bathroom, going to after-school programs, etc. My children's specialist teachers, art, music, phys ed, would be in every classroom in their school, and some of those teachers would also travel to the school where I work. This means that these teachers are possibly seeing 400 students on a weekly basis. Is it likely that if someone tests positive in one of those particular classrooms, this teacher could potentially carry it to multiple rooms across multiple schools? It is critically important to know that this spring, although it had its challenges, there were many success stories that went with it. We as teachers worked endlessly to make connections with our students. The connections I made with my students at that time were priceless. I had many students who were extremely successful during that time. In the spring, we had 0 materials at home and made it work. Imagine what we can do now that we have the experience in it, training with it, and access to our classroom materials. We cannot risk an early return to in-person learning that would result in students, their families, and their teachers getting sick. As a parent and educator, I urge our elected officials to choose a distance learning as their first choice so we can keep everyone safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Kaylee. Jacqueline Baldesano.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Jacqueline Baldesano. I'm a kindergarten teacher at Plum Cove, as well as a parent of a 2nd grader in the district. I feel that it is my obligation to speak up for my past and future students, as well as for my own child. I hope that by me sharing my perspective tonight, you will have a clearer understanding of the reality of the needs of younger students in the classroom when considering the different plans for instruction. I have constant cycling questions in my head that keep me up at night, as I am sure they do you, that are focused around the quality of addressing students' unique academic and social emotional needs. What do we expect from our teachers and our students? And are they realistic? On a regular basis, as a kindergarten teacher, I hug my students to comfort them, hold their hands down the hall to help them transition, help them blow their nose, assist them to unwrap those small straws that go into those impossible juice pouches, unbutton pants so they can go to the bathroom before they have an accident, zip coats, tie shoes, rub their backs to help them focus, allow them to sit in my lap when reading them a story. How do we expect to meet these needs in each of these proposed plans, and are they realistic? Academically, I know the importance of educating my students face-to-face, and there is nothing I would like more than to go back to normal. Remote teaching and learning is challenging and completely different from in-class instruction for younger students. Normally, my instruction throughout the day is based on the fact that these young people can only attend to me talking at them for no more than 10 minutes, and that is stretching it. So I have learned through experience and through professional development and education that we need to give students the opportunity to engage in what they are learning by offering them hands-on experiences, time to talk with and problem solve with each other, and frequent teacher check-ins. There are going to be students with varying needs as well. we are going to need to provide fine motor supports, which I would normally provide with hand-over-hand guidance to help them with cutting skills and letter formation. We are going to need to provide sensory supports, which I would normally provide using seating options, walk breaks, sensory tools. We are going to need to provide behavior supports, which I would normally provide a space for them to regulate their emotions, walk breaks, or water breaks. How do we expect them to learn and engage in each of these proposed plans, and are they realistic? I do not envy the position you are in, and I do not think there is a perfect option, but I hope that you consider the different needs of each grade level and think about the quality that we would be able to realistically provide when choosing our plan for instruction. Thank you.
Thank you. Leslie Gould.
Hi, this is Leslie. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, thank you so much for this forum. We really appreciate it. I have two kids at the Gloucester School System. One is at Plum Cove and the other is going into middle school. My question is, and I'm sorry if I have not read it anywhere or I missed it, my question is, if the kids go back to, say, 2 days, you know, a Monday, Thursday, or a Tuesday, Friday scenario where they're in school for 2 days and not for 3, is there an opportunity to still learn remotely and not send my children to school? In other words, if that's the plan, is that the plan I need to follow, or can I still keep them out? There was some confusion with some other parents with that as well. Thank you for your time.
Parents will have the option to choose not to send their students to school. And it is their option to be taught totally remote in all of the options and all of the possibilities. Next person will be Marissa Sablowski.
Hello, my name is Marissa Sablowski. I'm a lifelong Gloucester resident and a public educator in a neighboring district. At this moment, Massachusetts has more active cases of COVID-19 than when schools initially closed in March. And as I'm sure you know, the governor has just reduced in-person gatherings to 25 persons in any enclosed space, notably exempting public schools despite recent scientific studies indicating that children do acquire and transmit COVID as readily, if not possibly more so, than adults. Given the myriad health and safety concerns we currently face, it is my assertion that remote education is the only safe option for opening this fall, with a hope that we may work toward a hybrid model as cases reduce and a vaccine is made available. In my tenure through Gloucester Public Schools, I witnessed teachers innovate, push, and inspire despite significant limitations on supplies, overcrowded classrooms, and endless budget cuts. Simply put, we already ask too much of our teachers in Gloucester, and to impel them and our students to take this enormous risk to their own livelihood out of some misguided hope that COVID is done with us simply because we are done with it is naive at best and negligent at worst. Our talented educators are so very prepared to innovate on behalf of our students if given the chance to do so. Remote instruction is the only appropriate solution at this time, and the time and potential lives lost by forestalling this ultimate decision hinders our educators who could be dedicating themselves wholeheartedly toward making this transition as impactful and supportive as possible for our students and families. In solidarity with Gloucester Public Schools, I insist that the only appropriate number of COVID-related school deaths is 0. Thank you.
Okay, Jodi Drew.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah,
hello?
yes.
Thank you for having this forum. I think it's great. I just want to start off by saying that, I appreciate all the work that the teachers do on a year basis. And not by any means do I want to see anybody get sick or, God forbid, die. But I just feel like 5 active cases in Gloucester right now in the middle of tourism season with 40, 50,000 people in the city. And then since this whole thing started back in March, Gloucester's only had 300 cases max. I just feel like we're jumping the gun a little bit. And I think that, you're talking about a state like Massachusetts, 8 million people, 130,000 cases. It's 0.067% people infected. The death rate is 0.75%. So we're talking about really, really small numbers. And I think there's nobody more important than teachers as essential workers. And I think if they just everybody practices good hygiene, wears their mask, common sense, I don't see how we can't get back to school safely. And I just feel like, it's nerve-wracking, but, people are back at work. Grocery store people, convenience store people, liquor store people, Gorton's employees. These people have all been working this whole time through this, and they don't have these crazy cases of people getting sick and dying. So I think we just kind of got to sit down, take a breath, and really think about this for what it is. And I think the most important thing is to get these kids back to school, because you're not doing them any service by keeping them home, let alone the parents that have to go back to work, and then they can't go to work, they lose their job because now they have no one to watch their kids. And I just think it's unfortunate. And I think that, I know everybody's trying to figure this out, but I think we need to get together and look at this for what it really is and come together and get this going and get these kids back to school safely. And for the teachers as well, obviously. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Christine Kessick.
You don't have any answer.
Christine?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good evening, everyone. Although no one understands and knows what the right decision is here, I appreciate you taking the time to hear from us teachers so that we can make a more informed decision regarding the reopening of schools. Here are the specific scenarios and questions that directly impact and concern us teachers and why we are pushing for a phased-in approach, starting with remote learning for the school year. Cohort bubbles, as described by our administration, are simply not possible. Platooning elementary schools, middle school and high school students will all be moving classrooms. Students will also be going to specials in other classrooms, having support staff come in or pull out for services, and go to other classrooms for specific support programs. An example of this is a 5th grade class at XYZ school is broken up into 2 classes. Students see teacher A for literacy and writing and teacher B for math, science, and social studies. Students will be traveling to and from classroom A and B for these subjects during the day. Paraprofessionals, who tend to be of older generations, are split by subject and service 2 grade levels, say 4th and 5th grade. So these staff members are being exposed to 4 classes of students and are also exposing these grade levels to an additional grade level cohort. Special education staff will be pulling out to service students or coming into the classrooms for these services. These staff members service students in multiple grade levels, such as K1 and 5. So they are being exposed to 6 classes of students and now exposing a particular grade level to 2 other grade level cohorts. ELL teachers service every grade level in the school, so whether they push in or pull out, they are being exposed to all grade levels and exposing all cohorts to each other. Specific 5th graders at XYZ school are also part of a special program at their school and travel to a different classroom for a larger portion of their day for support. This classroom services grades 3 through 5 and could potentially expose each cohort to the other 2 cohorts. These students in 5th grade will also be going to different classrooms for specials, which are shared by the entire school and risk potential exposure for the entire school, regardless of cleaning procedures done by staff, with the time available for efficient transitions. Snack and mask breaks. In classrooms where the distancing parameters are only 3 feet, how do we safely accomplish a snack and mask break? If half the class is taken outside to this break to lessen the amount of kids inside at the time, who is going to be responsible for supervising the other group of students? What happens when the weather is not in our favor? 3 feet versus 6 feet for social distancing. What happens when those students who do not wear masks and have a medical note if the classroom is set up and can accommodate only 3 feet of social distancing? Are they outcasted to the outside of the classroom next or the edge of it? We live in a connected community in Gloucester. We're completely interconnected and relationships go beyond the classroom and school buildings. An example of this is a teacher who may work at Plum Cove School is infected. Her husband works at O'Malley, her sister works at the high school, her kids attend East Gloucester and Annisquam Preschool. Do all buildings now quarantine? This has potentially infected more than half of our schools. Our access to bathrooms. In one of our elementary schools, there is only one staff and one student bathroom. Some of these schools only have 2 student bathrooms. How are we going to guarantee that one student at a time is in the bathroom? Who is going to staff this? The condition and ventilation of our buildings is a major concern. We don't even need to get into that at this point. Our learning expectations.
Christine, you've gone over your time. Can you wrap it up?
Realistic. We are remote learning. We're going to go above and beyond the deep cleaning and the janitorial staff, the remote learning academy. Who will staff this? How will teachers be hired? Who will these teachers that have the time to prepare the remote learning experience, won't they have a decision for at least a week on the district's plan? Will more time be needed? Who will make the decision and deadline for families wanting to switch? Who will be staffing these? What if they are platooning schools? How will we staff this? Will they be long-term subs? Is there a budget for this? Are teachers shuffled around the district based on numbers at different schools? In regards to teachers not being able to build relationships,
Okay, Cynthia Machowski.
Okay, hi. I think sorry, it took me a second to unmute. Hello. Thank you all for listening. It's a long, definite process. It's a lot of people with a lot of things to say. So I appreciate I appreciate you having this forum. And I'm so excited I figured out how to have side-by-side view. It was driving me crazy to only see the timer and not see all of you. When you finally did the gallery view, I was so excited. I was like, where are they? Anyhow, so thank you. But I had prepared a little bit of a statement, but listening to the one parent, Mr. Drew, which I absolutely understand his concern. Other places do have people who work, but they also have a lot of like resources. They have the money, they have the cleaning products, they have the support, they have, I mean, they're corporations, most of them. So they have endless amounts of money to be able to like fight the infections and things like that. And that's one of the problems that's with our schools. We have not kept our schools up. We need proper ventilation. We need, I mean, I want to be back in school and I want to see my students, but I don't want to see them when it's unsafe for them. In Gloucester alone, when they mentioned the 300 cases, we've had 26 deaths. 5 of them have been at the high school. One of them was my student's father. He's younger than I am, and I'm really not that old. But anyhow, so when you think about that, that's the reality. It's not just the physical safety of the building, but it's reassuring the students and the staff. Yes, every precaution is there. We have unlimited resources. We can have this cleaned all the time, like giving people and students the peace of mind. And granted, nothing's 100%, but you know something, we're not anywhere near close to that with our students right now. And so, I mean, I would love nothing more to see my students. I want to establish those relationships. As Mr. Lummis said, the relationships are key, and I would love to be in person to establish it, but I can't. I just lost my train of thought. Anyhow, I thank you very much for listening, and believe it or not, I'm not going to take my full time. You guys get a special treat. It's like Christmas came early.
Thank you, Cynthia. Next up is Bo Abrams.
Hi, thanks guys for taking all of these questions. So I want to say that while right now it does seem very safe, we've been outside for most of us who are meeting people, and putting everybody into close quarters is really going to change the rates of COVID in our community. And I know that my son, who's a high school student, would really like to be back in the classroom, and it's really, he doesn't learn well online. And yet I had just had somebody die, and I also know that the upheaval that throws into a family is so significant, and there will be more deaths. So I don't envy the choices that you have to make and the massive number of different variables that you all are weighing. But I think that unless we could be outside in the beginning and people could be open in open air formats, we really don't have the kind of settings in the classrooms to make it safe going forward. And so that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Bo. Next up is Sherry Lawson.
Cheryl Olson.
Yeah. Cheryl Olson, okay.
Okay, so we know that my typical thing is a few hard-hitting type questions. So one of the thoughts that I had is the emotional impact of the strict rules that students are going to be required to go back to school with, especially like in the hybrid model. What do schools do with the students who won't? Just throwing it out there. Will parents be available to come pick up their students? Another thought that I had is if a parent is choosing to go remote, and I know that you as a school committee are planning on 20% of students making, 20% of families making that choice. Would their assigned teacher be delivering the remote services as well as servicing the needs of the students that might be in front of them in the hybrid model? The other thing that I think would be good was if we went to all remote, would the schools be able to maybe facilitate some of the bubbling that parents could use to help students and families provide more support in a much, much smaller setting? That's all. Have a great night, guys. It's a hard decision. I'm glad I'm not doing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. I'm sorry I messed up your name. At this moment, no of the 302 attendees, nobody has their hand up. So is there anybody who hasn't spoken that would like to make a statement? You just raise your hand. So we have Linda. Please, you'll have to identify yourself when we open it up. We lost Linda. Carol McKenzie.
Hello? Did you lose me?
Linda's there.
I'm here. Linda Petrino's here.
Is this Linda?
Yes?
Okay, so please identify yourself. All we have on your your first name.
My name's Linda Petrino. I'm a high school teacher at Gloucester High School. And I have a concern that there's no testing, COVID testing in Gloucester. That's my understanding right now. The closest testing is Beverly and Danvers, which I think is, you know, I just think that's not good. I think we need testing in Gloucester. I think a lot of people, it's a hardship for people to get down there if they get sick. And, you know, I also think that if we had, you know, cheap rapid testing where kids can, you know, and people and staff can test themselves at home or at school, I think that would really help to make the school safer. I think without this testing, we just can't open up. And that's all I have to say. I'm concerned about testing, lack of testing.
Okay, is that it? Thank you. like I say, people are raising their hands for the second time. I'm going to go with people that haven't spoke yet. So Roger Davis.
Thank you very much, and thank you to the whole panel for taking this time to hear us out. My name is Roger Davis. I live at 2 Goodwin Road in Gloucester. I taught at O'Malley for 18 years before my retirement. Part of the reason I retired was because of health issues that would that do make me how do they say, immunocompromised. My wife still teaches at O'Malley. In fact, she's doing some remote teaching this summer for her students. I think a picture is worth 1,000 words, so I'd like to paint this picture for you. When the nation was swept with school shootings, teachers began to, we had to undergo ALICE training, lockdown drills, rightfully so, to protect the children and ourselves. And now I think we can picture this situation that in a month from now, or 2 months from now, or 3 months from now, a crazed killer is going to come to Gloucester, to our schools, invisible, with invisible bullets. But if we were to say, oh, it can't happen here, well, I'm sure the people of Sandy Hook never thought it would happen there. If we were to say, oh, only a few kids will get wounded, and they should recover. Could we say that if it was a shooter with an AK-47? Oh, only a few kids will get shot, and they should recover? That would be completely irresponsible. And then finally, I'd like to picture the emotional setting in a classroom where these teachers will be teaching. It will be as if we were asking them to teach during a lockdown crisis, when we know there's an active shooter in the building, and yet you're asking teachers to continue teaching under that stressful circumstances. I really urge you to consider remote learning, and I would urge parents listening to take that option for remote learning. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Roger. Let's see, Lorena Cerruti.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, my name is Lorena Cerruti, and I'm a teacher at Gloucester High School. I don't live in Gloucester. I live in Swampscott, Massachusetts. And I have several concerns. My first is my kids are going remote. I have 3 kids at the high school level, at the middle school level, and the elementary level. And my town has chosen to go remote. The 2 towns on either side of me have chosen to go remote. Boston has chosen to go remote. Somerville has gone remote. I don't know what the statistics are for how many schools have decided to go remote. But what do those teachers do who are coming from outside of the district and their kids are doing one thing? And I get a lot of parents have to go to work and their kids are staying home, and we're in that category. But then, I'm bringing whatever I have at Gloucester High School home to them. As someone mentioned at the last meeting, many of our students are essential workers, and they're being exposed to so many people, and high school students are not in the children category, they're in the young adult category. So they transmit very quickly, and they don't really social distance at all. If you take a look at any of the social media of any teenager right about now. So that's a huge concern. Those 2 things are really concerning to me. And then just the overall social, emotional health of students who are already nervous and anxious about the virus coming to school and being exposed and being around so many people. That's going to be really, really challenging for those students as well. So I hope that the school committee takes a look at the schools around them, and also what we look at the schools in the South and what's already happened to so many of those school districts since the opening. We have the luxury of watching what happened down South before we open, and hopefully we will be able to learn from it. So thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you. Let's see, who hasn't spoken? The next person up is, all I see is Ms., M-I-Z. So please identify yourself when you start speaking.
Hi, my name is Anne Marie Stackhouse. I am a resident and also a teacher at Gloucester High School. I just want to say there is no good option here. We know that as teachers. We want to be back in our classrooms. We want to be back with the students. However, we want to do so safely. And I just want to tell the committee and the parents, the classroom isn't going to look like it normally does. There is no group work. We have gone to a higher order thinking model where we had people work in groups of 4 and then branch out and have these great discussions, and we can't do that in this type of setting now. And that was very beneficial to our students, and we saw that they learned better that way. We've also discussed that there's going to be no one-on-one help. We have been told by nurses and professionals that we're not supposed to go up to students when they have a question and go by their desk. I, for one, walk around teaching, and I'm not supposed to do that. We were also told that we will most likely have after-school help virtually, not in person. I am also worried about my students who have anxiety, because coming to school and maybe being exposed is giving them even more anxiety. Kids who are sick and who are quarantined, what are they supposed to do for their instruction? They're going to have to do remote, but they won't have the advantage of being in the classroom. I know that this timeline is mandated by the state, but it also seems extremely rushed. We don't have time to make a concrete plan. We're back in the classroom in under 3 weeks for professional development, and then trying to figure out what we're doing, hybrid model, remote model, whatever, in these lessons. And most of us have worked very hard, not only in the spring, but all summer long, taking professional development classes of how to do this and how to do it effectively and efficiently for our students, because we really, really care. And to the point of where they said not a lot of children have this, the schools have been closed since March. They haven't been in that kind of setting where everybody gets together. So we don't really have good enough data for that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next up would be Andrew Mott.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Lori Mott, and I'm a 3rd grade teacher at Plum Cove. I've taught for 21 years, the last 14 in Gloucester, 7 in Salem. And in those 21 years, I have really never been given great paper towels or cleaning products for my classroom in either district. So I feel Gloucester's been amazingly great about curriculum materials. So my big question is, what kind of cleaning materials are teachers going to get if we're in class? I'm a platooning teacher, so I have 2 sets of kids coming in my room every day. Trying to get cleaning materials for my own home and my own family has been a challenge. Going to Target, finding none of the bleach products on the shelf. I have a son who works in a grocery store, asking him to constantly check there to see if there's bleach products. It's been a struggle just getting this stuff for my own home, let alone for the classroom. Yesterday I went on Amazon looking for things and I saw 3 things of bleach wipes for $75. And you know, we are going to need, if we're in person, cleaning products that are good, that are quick and effective. So I just want you to know that if we go in, teachers are not necessarily going to be able to find these things easily in the store, and we are going to need your help. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see. Next up would be Joanna. Are you there?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry, it's breaking up. I have a couple of things. It's more or less like the kids with special needs that are on IEPs. I have a son that's in preschool that has autism, and he needs that in-person learning. So this whole online learning thing really wasn't happening. And I also have a soon-to-be 3rd grader. He really needs that in-school learning. But my fear is if we do have to go remote, is there going to be a way for tutors to come in, especially if they're not even able to go to school and it's a constant battle with trying to do the online learning? And it kind of pretty much was a fend for yourself, and you were just given assignment. So it really was definitely unorganized. And then my middle child, which he's at the Gap, we haven't heard anything about the Gap with what's going to happen with them at all. So I just I have one from preschool to the high school, and it's really concerning, especially because they're all on IEPs that we don't really know much of anything. And I'm part of the CPAC too, and we're not having any input from the school committee or really anyone with, as far as like the IEPs go and the kids with special needs, like what services are going to be available. These kids are really behind. So I just would really like to know like how it's gonna, moving forward, what's the options for these children, because if the online learning's not working and they need in person and we can't send them to school, what else do we have?
Thank you. We have many questions among ourselves, and we're going to continue to pursue them. So is that it, Joanna? Okay, next would be Jessica Guest.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi. So first of all, I want to say that I know that this isn't easy, and I've sat and I've listened and I've talked to lots of people, and I appreciate the work that everyone is putting into this. And I'll start by saying that I don't know that there's a right answer. Sorry, my name's Jessica. I should have introduced myself first. My name's Jessica Guest, and I have a son who's going into middle school at O'Malley this year. I was a social worker at Beverly Hospital when COVID started, and I totally get what it's like to go to work and be terrified that you're going to bring something home. We didn't have 3 weeks, or 2 months to prepare. We sort of did things on the fly, and they changed every day. And we did the best we could. And I think overall they did a pretty good job with what they had. And I think people, keep comparing this to what's going on in Georgia and down south. And I think that we have to realize that down south they didn't do the same social distancing guidelines that we did here, and they don't have in place any of these sort of things that we're talking about here about 3 feet distance and the masks and all of that. It's not going to be like it was down south. And you know, people keep saying that it isn't going to look like it did before. You know, there's not going to be the social interaction and all of that. And you know, having a remote learning program doesn't look like that either. So I don't know that that's necessarily a great argument either. Kids are getting together. They're going to have to get together because parents are going to have to get creative about ways to have their kids taken care of. I think there's a whole group of people who are probably not present on this meeting right now because they don't have the luxury of having a phone or a computer to have access to the Zoom meeting. And those kids need to be in school. There's a whole population of people in our community that, you know, rely on the school for safety and for meals. And I know that that's not what, you know, teachers went to school for, but the reality is this is our community and those are our kids. And I think that the social emotional needs need to be considered more than they're being considered. And I think that really there needs to be some kind of option for both. I think there are kids who need to be in school and there, you know, are parents who might not want to send their kids to school or kids who might do better at home. And I think either option is good, but I do think it's important to recognize that neither one of those things is going to be, you know, the answer for the whole population of this city. And Gloucester has really surprised me and come together over the past couple of months. And I think, you know, in terms of things that the school needs, I think as a community, we need to rally and we need to get the school what they need. If there's going to be in-person learning, and it's going to be up to us as community members to do that. So thank you for listening, and I commend you all for trying to make this decision. I wouldn't want to be in your shoes. But I think there's a lot to consider, and I do think that there's not one answer.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to Krista Houghton.
Good evening. My name is Krista Houghton, and I have been a classroom teacher at East Gloucester School since 2014. I understand the difficulties and challenges we face in regards to the resumption of educating the children in our community. I do not envy the committee members for having to make such a difficult decision as to what we should do for this upcoming school year. However, I do share the concerns for returning to our buildings this fall in person, like many of my colleagues do. I fear for the health and well-being of students and staff alike in regards to the quality of sanitation and air quality within our buildings. Our janitors have worked diligently during this time to prepare our building, and we are forever grateful for their work during this time. However, our building, as you are all aware, was built in 1948 and has steadily declined over the years. I personally have recently decided to create a Donors Choose fundraising campaign to raise $600 to purchase a Dyson air purifier in hopes of providing my students with cleaner air, as we will potentially not be provided with these items due to costs. I was not asked to do this, but I am working diligently to be the best prepared teacher that I can be. It must be the type A Girl Scout in me. I am thankful to work in such an amazing community and am grateful for the relationships I have made with both parents, students, and staff alike. I only ask that you consider the statements made by the staff and parents this evening and make the decision that is best for our school community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Let's see who hasn't spoken. M. Desmond.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, I'm Alyssa Desmond. I am a special education teacher in essentially a sub-separate classroom over at West Parish. And I have upwards of 13 students in my class. So I'm here to talk, I'm also a parent in the district. I have a child entering middle school and another one in elementary school. Essentially, I'm speaking for the kids with the high needs. And we know from the spring that online learning did not work for my students. My students need to be face-to-face. They need to be working one-on-one and in small groups. And I'm fortunate that I work at West Parish, where I personally do feel safe going back into West Parish, where the air quality is good. I do have a couple concerns. I am high risk myself. My concerns stem around the cleanliness of my classroom and making sure that it's cleaned properly on a daily basis, as well as the additional disinfecting that's going to have to take place. I'm concerned about my high need students who are coming in with high risk category disabilities themselves, medical issues, as well as their disabilities, and protecting them and the students who can't wear masks due to medical issues. And I just need to be assured if I'm going back into my classroom, which is what I want to do personally, that I'm assured that I have the proper PPE. That, I mean, I've already purchased some myself, which is what I do anyway. But I need to make sure that I'm protecting my students and myself, and that my classroom is getting properly cleaned and disinfected, and that we have the proper tools to ensure that learning, because there are those groups of students who cannot learn online. And we know that, and it was difficult in the spring. And I understand as a parent, there are concerns. I mean, I do have 2 students myself, and their schedule may look different than my schedule. And that's always a concern. But as a parent, that's something I need to figure out, because I do know that teachers are not babysitters and they're not responsible for childcare. And I just think that all that needs to be taken into consideration. But I really do hope that the committee really thinks about those high need learners and what those kids need. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's see, who hasn't, Jane Cunningham.
I think I'm unmuted. Is that true?
That is true. We can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, great. My name's Jane Cunningham. I have a daughter going into 9th grade at the high school. And I'm also a teacher in Reading at Reading Memorial High School. And I have spent the summer agonizing over this decision. I saw firsthand students who did not do well with remote learning. And it was heartbreaking for me as a teacher. My child does better in school. However, I do not feel at this time that we should be in an in-person situation. It's been a lot of thinking about this and a lot of reading and looking at the data and looking at the maps every day. And it doesn't feel safe. And I want to request a phased in approach, as some other districts are doing, where we take our time with this and we don't end up with deaths on our hands that we can control. And again, I hear the concerns, I feel them myself. I do not think that the district is ready to go back to school in person. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Erin Scholdenmeyer.
Hi, I'm Erin Scholdenmeyer. I'm a 4th grade teacher at Beeman. And there are a lot of concerns that I've had that have been voiced already. But I want to kind of emphasize my biggest concerns, which remain, you know, the social emotional component for students. When we head back, it's not going to look the same as it did pre-COVID. I had a picture sent to me of one of our model classrooms today, and it is jam-packed with chairs and soon to be desks, and it doesn't look like there's going to be a whole lot of group work or socializing. And that's, I mean, for an elementary school teacher or any teacher, is kind of an upsetting reality. That if we go back in person, it's going to look a lot like remote teaching looked, because you can't do the group work. Everything's going to be on Zoom or Google Meets anyway. And the other main concern over at Beeman is air quality. You know, I would joke with my colleagues, like I would come into the building and the first thing I would do is sneeze 5 times, like every single day. And while I love my colleagues and, you know, my building, right now, I didn't feel safe pre-COVID in terms of air circulation. I certainly don't feel safe now. I don't know what has been done in our buildings. I know that our custodians have been working diligently, but there's a lot that they're tasked with. So I just want to kind of emphasize that not all buildings are the same. In some buildings, maybe people might feel safer in certain instances, but I do not feel safe in our current situation over at Beaman, even though I want to go back. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any hands up by people who haven't spoken already. I'll give it a minute to see if anybody who hasn't spoken would like to speak.
Jonathan, I don't think Carol McKenzie has spoken yet.
I believe she did. Am I wrong? Okay. We have John Griffin.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hi, I just wanted to address a concern I have. I'm a teacher at O'Malley, and an area that I haven't heard discussed much and concerns me has to do with staffing. And I know that the administrators have gone through a deal of trouble and effort to put together a fantastic plan, and I tip my cap to them. And oftentimes you put something on paper and you have to kind of move things around a bit as things move along. And I'm concerned about the ability of having full staffing and adequate training for not only the teachers and the administrators, but for substitutes. My understanding is that we'll all be asked to stay home if we're sick and for the right thing, but are we going to have enough people to fully staff the building? Adequate training, vetting, that sort of thing. To be honest, most of our most successful substitutes are former teachers. They happen to fall into the, excuse me, the kind of high risk category. We may not have access to them. We may be kind of moving on a short staff most of the time. And that concerns me. So I wonder if that's something we need to address and think about as we proceed towards deciding hybrid versus fully remote.
Thank you. Is that it?
Yep.
Okay. We have Deidre.
Hi, actually Sarah Lovegreen. We've got a couple of moms here following along. I'm a little late to the party, so I apologize if some of this has been asked already. I have a kindergartner, and I feel really strongly that she needs to meet her teacher and meet her classmates, even if they go to school for a month before they go full remote, just to have a sense she doesn't understand that she's not going back to the same school that she went to, the same preschool, the same kids. And I feel like she will not be able to do remote learning if she doesn't have that introduction with the teacher and the other kids. She had a really hard time when her preschool went remote. She got very shy with the meetings, and she really just couldn't get involved with it. And then I also believe this was asked, and I'm sorry I didn't hear the answer, but my number one question is, if we get like one case, is the whole school shutting down? Will parents be notified that there's a case, and then will we have the option to switch to remote? I've read the whole website. You guys did a great job with that. And I think all the plans you've put together are good options. I like that each parent has the option to choose to go full remote, but I would really like my daughter to go to school, even if it's only for a little while. Also, I hear a lot of people talking about the phased in. Obviously, you teachers know way more than I do. My kids come into kindergarten. I don't know all the buildings, but I feel like getting them in there before we need the heat on all the time. And I know not all classrooms even have windows, but those that can have open windows is a better option than maybe waiting. I kind of feel like we're lucky if we make it to Christmas before we're full remote, whether we like it or not. So I'd just like to say, I'd like to get the kids in there for a little while even. And I also have a niece who needs that special attention and doesn't do well with the remote, and I'd really like to see her back in a classroom. But my number one question is just, is it going to be a school by school scenario, a case by case scenario, or just, oh, somebody has symptoms, send them home for 2 weeks, and then there's contact tracing? Thank you.
Thank you. I stand corrected that Carol McKenzie has not spoken. Carol McKenzie.
we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Great. Thank you so much. I appreciate you calling me back. I'm a lifelong Gloucester resident. My name is Carol McKenzie, and I am a 44-year registered nurse, 30 years at Addison Gilbert Hospital, and 14 years in the community for elder services. I have seen so many people thinking that they're being as cautious as they can, using the right disinfectants, you wearing their masks, trying to do their social distancing, thinking that they are doing everything they can to avoid contracting this virus. And I have known people that have been that cautious, but have come home not feeling quite right, and then finding out that they have themselves had COVID, minor symptoms, but now their elder parent is in the hospital on a ventilator. I have seen many, and known many people, not just in Gloucester, because my community nursing extends to 9 different communities. But as cautious as people are trying to be, this infection is virulent. It is easily picked up, and people are transmitting it, thinking that they're doing everything right. I'm very concerned about how you're going to protect our teachers and the staff, as well as the students, in terms of what plan is there to meet the needs of these teachers or students or staff who are living with prior conditions that put them at higher risk, or have family members that they are taking care of that are at higher risk that they may be bringing home. It's too soon to be opening the schools, in my opinion, for in-person learning. I believe the best option right now is to do remote learning only and give it time so that the teachers and the district have time to sort through this and come up with a better plan as the COVID numbers begin to change, and work towards more of a hybrid model later. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, Dawn Leone.
Hi. So my concern is for the students that don't qualify in the top 75% of the students with disabilities. I want to make sure that those are the students that don't fall through the cracks. A lot of them need special services, whether it's social emotional, PT, OT, speech therapy. And if we're in school, that they still receive those services, even if it's a smaller amount of time, more days a week, so that they can get that concrete service that helps them learn. The other thing is, if we're remote, they need to have either one-on-one post-class time Zoom calls with either their special ed or their speech therapy, or someone that can help them through the social emotional issues. A lot of parents have voiced, so I'm CPAC, so a lot of parents have voiced their concerns for their children with these special needs that aren't in the sub-separate classrooms, and they need the extra support. Me as a parent of a child with autism, it is a challenge. I have to sit right there. I haven't been able to work because I have to sit there with him in the class. And I know a lot of parents have to make that choice. Ideally, I'd love to see him go back to school, but I'm not sure that is necessarily the best situation when we reopen, just for contracting any sort of a bug and passing it to any of the teachers, or teachers contracting it from any of the kids. But I want to make sure that their services don't go and fall to the wayside, because those are the kids that will need it to succeed as well. And that's my main concern. And that's it.
Thank you, Dawn.
You're welcome.
Michelle Bailey.
Hi, my name is Michelle Bailey. I am a teacher at the O'Malley Middle School, and I did send you a picture of the window in my classroom, which is about 1.5 feet tall and about 3 feet wide in a gigantic room. So I am rather concerned about ventilation at the school, as I would consider that an inadequate window for any sort of air exchange. I also have the great pleasure of having the air exchange unit in the black closet, so I hear it banging all day long. So I'm not certain that the air exchange system works properly in my part of the building, and I would really encourage you to engage one of the state's certified environmental engineer companies to come in and do an assessment of the air exchange and the ventilation system at O'Malley and at other schools. And the other part is I would really like to take on the challenge of what online learning is going to be. I think this is going to be a revolutionary time for education. But I think that whether or not you were remote or hybrid needs to be driven by some sort of health data. And I would encourage you to set the data that determines when it's safe for us to enter the building and when it isn't safe. And that data should be based on the region and not just Gloucester, because we have children who go to their parent in Peabody and go to their parent in Danvers and go to their parent in New Hampshire and then come to school in Gloucester when they're with their other parent. And we have people who work in the school who come from all over the region. So we really need to be looking at not the health in Gloucester, but the health across the region. I truly cannot appreciate more all the time and effort you're putting into this tonight, and I thank you and wish you the best in making your decision.
Thank you. Phoebe Potts.
Hi, thanks.
Hi.
So I have a number of concerns, but the one that I wanted to raise tonight is some information that I got from the public health nurse of the city of Peabody. She's also the public health nurse for Rockport, and it's about the DESI guidelines. So according to the CDC and who the state departments of education from New Hampshire, Maine, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Minnesota, New Jersey, Delaware, Virginia, North Carolina, Vermont, and New York are all following, that there is a guideline about when someone can return to school if they've been near someone who has tested positive. So DESI in Massachusetts decided that due to this is their words, due to the requiring of masks and the importance of students in school, there was a conscious decision to differ from the Department of Public Health CDC guidance. And we're recommending that schools in Massachusetts follow the DESI guidance. Well, it specifically is about if someone is positive and then we all go home and we get our tests because we were near that person, or our children do and the staff do, that if our children and the staff get a negative test, they can return the next day provided they wear masks. Well, the CDC says no, you would still need to have a period of 14 days quarantine to allow for to see if there's any incubation of the virus. So I also very much want to go back to the building. I want my son to be able to go back to the building. I'm not, after reading this, convinced that DESI has given us guidelines that set us up for health and success. Thank you.
Thank you. Joanne Horn.
Hi, my name is Joanne Horn. I teach 7th grade social studies at O'Malley School, and I am a Gloucester resident. My first concern in going back to school is, of course, my students. The social and emotional health of the students are a very high concern of mine. We know that when students are dealing with a traumatic experience or high levels of stress, that they're not really able to learn. And I feel like putting them into schools causes immediately a high stressful situation, and many of the students are feeling very traumatized, just worrying about catching COVID or giving it to someone or people dying in our community. I really am advocating for a fully remote start to the school year. I have faith in the possibility of a vaccination, and it seems like such a short period of time that if there is a vaccination that comes our way, you know, we might just be back in school regular 1 year from now. It could happen, you know, after the holidays. But to ask that we come back in the safest possible way seems to be the best solution. I can also attest to remote learning working and being able to meet new students and have relationships and have students work in groups and collaborate with one another and see each other's faces and see their smiles, and they can see the smiles of the teachers. That all works. People might say remote learning doesn't work because in the spring, it was very difficult. It was difficult for everyone. No one knew what they were doing. We had never done this before. But over the course of the summer, I've been involved in a program at O'Malley doing the summer camps, and I've seen and met kids firsthand. I feel like I know them. I have relationships with them. They know me. We can see each other's faces. The students work well together. It's really been great. We've had a lot of professional development over the summer that helps us to do a better job this fall if we go remotely. I think things would be different. In the spring, we were concerned with, you know, just this virus and keeping kids, their skills up. If we go remote, it's going to have to be more rigorous. So I think if we had the decision to go for remote, teachers could spend their time planning for the very best case scenario for their kids. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, once again, I see no hands up from people who haven't spoken. There we are, just like that. That's all I have to say. Mr. Lichtenwald.
Yep, speaking.
We can, you're all set.
I'm all set?
Yep.
Well, as a parent, I have 3 kids at the high school, 1 in the middle school, and my wife and I both teach at the high school. So scheduling is a nightmare just as a parent, especially since no one really has anything set in stone yet. Everything's in flux. And our kids are actually school choicing to Gloucester from Essex. And right now, I've just been sitting waiting for people to make the smart decision here. It makes sense to weigh everything out. But in the long run, it just doesn't make sense to go back to school for the first semester because you're just gambling and hoping that things will go the right way. And there's no upside to that. There's no upside to going back and gambling, and then all hell breaks loose. You're gonna get yelled at on either way you're making the decision, but that's what we call leadership. Okay, so that's what you guys signed on for, and it's tough for you. I get it. But for those of us who are, and there's quite a few of us, the teachers who have health issues. Of course, I had a heart transplant, but puts me on the high risk level. I've got a fellow teacher who donated a kidney. There's so many of us that even if I trust me, I want to be back in my classroom, and I want to teach my kids, but weighing out the safety of myself and my kids at home versus going into school, for me, it just doesn't make sense. And right now, no one can tell me what accommodations are going to be made for those of us who fall into the Americans with Disability Act, which there will be quite a few teachers. So again, this is also another reason why first semester just seems to make more sense if we start virtual and then work our way towards getting back to school and getting back to somewhat of a normal school system. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. Kathy, so please identify yourself when you start speaking.
Hi, it's Kathy Interante. I'm a special ed teacher at O'Malley School. Thank you for giving me the time to speak. I am really concerned with the lackadaisical attitudes of a lot of people in the community. I just returned from an out-of-state trip, and I haven't even been able to hug my granddaughter because my husband and I we had to be tested. We went right away first thing this morning to be tested, and we're waiting for our results to come back. But in addition to that, you know, Mayor Thakin has posted on Facebook multiple times about the concerns that she has with the community. And we all saw the posts of the kids at graduation hugging with no masks on. My concern is, how can we trust the community to police their kids and make sure that we as teachers and the students that are being safe can remain safe? COVID is a very scary, scary thing. We know people that we've lost to COVID, people that are close to us, and we really can't mess this up. And I think going back to school in a full, you know, in-class setting, or even some kind of a hybrid setting at this point, is not safe until people really can take ownership of their own safetyness. And if you look at some of the stuff that's posted on Facebook, you know that people are not being safe, and they're not following the protocols that are necessary. I just spent, you know, almost 2 weeks traveling national parks, wearing face masks throughout the parks, and other people were doing the same thing. But, you know, it's something that everybody has to do and take into consideration. And as a special ed teacher at O'Malley School, I worked really hard this last spring, hours that you cannot fathom, to help make sure that I reached out to my kids. And I reached most of them, and a lot of them worked really hard with me. And the ones that didn't, it was difficult to reach out to them, and they had their own reasons why they weren't able to be successful in the remote learning. But remote learning is very doable, and it's something that we can manage. We've all been doing training over the summer, working hard to make sure that we can provide a good education for our students. And I really appreciate your consideration in this matter. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Let's see. Alexandra Mitchell. Okay, we can't hear you. Or see you. All right, hold on. I don't know. We can come back. Let's move on to Sean Goulart.
Hi, quick question for you. So each principal had to put forward a plan for their building. I would love to hear each principal's real personal feelings about their plan, and if they would feel comfortable having their own children in their building. I think that'd be important. I know they had to put a plan together, but I'd love to know if they really believe and support the plan and think it's actually doable. That's it.
Thank you, Sean. We're going to go back to Alexandra Mitchell. See if we can-
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
You are. Thanks.
I didn't allow my microphone earlier. Sorry
Well, we
about
can
that.
hear you now.
Thank you. So I'm just sitting here watching a baseball game and enjoying the outdoors and a social distance, right? That's ideal. We all want the same thing, and I appreciate you taking the time to hear just the spontaneous thought in my brain. It's like, I know we all want to get back to our normal lives in the sense of our old normal, but we need to conform as a community and understand that being outdoors is the healthiest thing that we can do for our children, no matter if it's raining, if it's snowing, if there's ice on the ground. We always have to take safety precautions. And I was all about sending my kids back to school, even with all the immunodeficiencies and suppressing medications that family members and friends are taking, or, you know, the unforeseeable. I coach at Endicott College, assistant track and field for the women's cross country team. And I also am the O'Malley track and field assisting with Coach Souza, and I coach cross country at middle school for the past 4 seasons. So I definitely want to be back with our student athlete body as well as the teachers. I miss coming into O'Malley. Like, I'm going to miss that, saying hi to the secretaries and the teachers and passing by friendly faces. But maybe we should just stay outside. I know the budget is definitely a thing. And I mean, my cousin and I were talking through the listening of this about maybe like outdoor porta potties. I mean, Stage Fort Park is gigantic. Can we just put a school here until it's like not safe? Can we just tell everybody to stay out of our city? I mean, I worked down on Main Street. I worked with the public. My family owns a restaurant in Magnolia, 525 Tavern. I mean, we love our community, and we know that tourism can bring a lot of money into the city, but at the same time, people need to stay home and stay out of our city so that we can just be the city of Gloucester. We pay our taxes. We have our coins that we put in our meters. I mean, can we just stay outside? Can we rent tents? And I mean, we all have winter clothing, and if we don't have that, can we donate it? You know, if there's any ideas on staying outside and then go to remote learning, and so that way there the teachers have more time to think about, you know, their structure of how they're going to do their new lives. I mean, I appreciate you thinking about that. And again, I'm an avid for sport, so like, let's just keep our people outside. I appreciate your time, and good luck with everything, because I'm praying for the right decision and the stress to be relieved. Thank you.
Thank you. We're all looking for the right decision. Roseanne Bidell.
Hi, thank you. So I have to, I second what the woman who was just on said about the outdoor learning. I think that would be a great solution. I have 2 questions. One, what are, if any, efforts are underway through the City Council or the City Administration of Gloucester to get testing available in Gloucester so that students and teachers and staff will be able to be tested if necessary without having to go to Gloucester. I mean, sorry, to go to Peabody. And my second question is, are any of you aware of what formed the basis of the state guidelines for reentry to school? For example, did they look at other countries that are farther ahead of us in the pandemic and how they worked out their return to schools, how successful it was, and if they had an increase in infection rates? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Kelsey Lothers.
Hi, so my name is Kelsey Lothers. I'm class president of the now senior class. I have a mom that teaches at Gloucester High School, and I just wanted to weigh in on how I would love to go back to school with the hybrid learning. I had a lot of trouble adapting to remote learning, and a lot of people that I've talked to had trouble as well. It's hard not to get the same in-person teaching. I'm here trying to like go ahead with AP classes next year, and there's material that I did not learn in like quarantine that I would have learned in class, and I think it'd be very beneficial socially, emotionally, and just in being in person. It means a lot to the kids, and I do understand the health and safety concerns, but I do think that there's a way to do it, and I think that the hybrid model is what we should go with. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Once again, I don't see any hands up of people who haven't already spoken. Okay, Rebecca Perry. Rebecca, are you there? Okay. No, went away. Okay. So is there anybody else who hasn't spoken that would like to speak? Lauren Horn?
Brilliant. Am I unmuted?
You're unmuted. We can
Thank you
hear
so
you.
much. And thank you for everyone for being here and taking the time to air your views and hear from the community. I would just like to advocate for remote learning based on my experience. I work in O'Malley as a director in the drama club, and I have had the pleasure and privilege of continuing that work remotely in the spring and in the summer. Trust me, drama club is one of those things that you want to be there for all the social, emotional reasons and all of the forms of expression. I love your students more than anything, and I want to give your kids the sun, moon, and the stars. However, going back isn't going to look the same. To put the kind of safety measures in place that are necessary to keep students and teachers safe will create such a rigid, stressful environment that won't allow for social interaction. It won't allow for the kind of creative collaboration that you want for students' social and mental health. I also believe that teachers are going to be in such a high stress environment trying to enforce these measures. Teaching is going to take a severe hit. I know that remote learning is difficult and that the spring was messy. It was a learning curve for everybody, but it also wasn't being graded. And we've taken a lot of seminar courses over the summer, learning more. And I can personally attest that we've put in some ungodly hours working on how to make this work. And I know that our summer programs for theater have been more successful than I believe they would be going back. We are able to talk and laugh with our kids. They're being active and they are being challenged. They're learning and growing. And I've met students I've never been able to meet in person, and I truly do know them. They get to give each other feedback, and I get to see their personalities and their growth and development. As much as I would love to get your students back in the classroom, do their 8th grade show, give them all the things that I've promised them, there is no benefit that's going to exist that outweighs the risk. The enormous responsibility that teachers are taking on of protecting the lives of themselves and their loved ones is going to be incredibly stressful, detrimental, impossible to sustain. So I really hope that you take into consideration, I know we all want to be back in the classrooms, but I really do implore you to wait till it's safe and trust us that we are able to provide the very best that we can for your students remotely. Thank you very much.
Thank you for everything. Once again, I'm looking for people who would like to speak that haven't spoken already. Okay, I'm just going to ask, Roseanne, did you speak already?
Yeah, I did, but I didn't hear your response, Jonathan.
Well, we're not responding, so we're taking in tonight. So.
Oh, you're not responding? When will you be responding?
We're going to have a debate among ourselves on Wednesday night, And all of these things will be taken into consideration.
So did someone write down my questions?
Oh yeah, this is recorded, and we've been taking notes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I don't see anybody else that hasn't spoken already, so I am going to close the public part of this meeting, and now I'm getting them. Michelle Sanfilippo.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hi, I'm Michelle Sanfilippo. I am a parent of a middle schooler, and I'm also a parent of a second grade teacher at Plum Cove School. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. First of all, I'd like to address a comment made earlier who compared teachers in a sense to grocery workers. For starters, people who work in grocery stores or any other store for that matter are not the same as a teacher. They're not even close. Teachers work in very close proximity with our children. They wipe noses, they wipe away tears, they provide comfort. They have group reading, math tables, they're together a lot. They're very hands-on with our children. I feel that you have a very difficult decision to make, but we need to make a safe choice for our students and our teachers, and most importantly, not to look at our teachers as childcare providers. Their personal safety should be our main concern. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Rebecca. Did we lose
Hi,
her?
can you hear me?
Yes.
Does it work? Okay.
You're very garbled.
I'm a sure separate. I don't know. Sorry. I'm a Mr. O'Malley and separate. And this spring, doing it virtually. Half of my kids.
Rebecca, can you try stopping your video to see if your audio improves?
Rebecca, we can't understand anything you're saying. You want to try it without the video? Okay. Anybody else? Okay, so once again, we have, I'm going to close the public input part of this meeting. That doesn't mean that if you haven't gotten your message across or you want to add to it or anything like that. As I've said, we've received probably, I'm just going to guess because I didn't count them up, but 75 or 80 emails with people voicing their concerns of different points of view, as well as, and I expect to receive more between now and Wednesday. So that being said, I'm going to ask if anybody from the school committee would like to make a comment. And Grant, you can take down the timer. We're not going to hold them to that. Joel?
I just want to thank everyone who participated, and for anyone who was nervous about speaking, as you stated, please reach out to us via email. I'm not going to respond or deliberate right now. I'd like to really synthesize everything we heard tonight and everything we've received so far, and then hopefully have a thoughtful conversation about it at our next meeting.
Laura.
Just to piggyback on what Joel said, a big thank you. And I also wanted to give the email address that people can use to write to all of us, which is Gloucester School Committee at gloucesterschools.com. If you want to reach the school committee, that email address will get to all of us. And we do want to hear from you. Thank you.
Melissa.
I too, like at the beginning, just want to thank everybody for their words tonight. Obviously, everybody has opinions and concerns. I think what we all agree is we're all looking out to do the safest thing possible. We just have different ways of looking at what safe means. And looking forward to hearing from the DPW on Wednesday. It's my understanding they're coming out to speak because it seems like a majority of the concerns are about buildings and the concerns of the condition of the buildings. And what I don't think the public realizes is there is such an intense amount of work, and I know this because I've asked the past couple of days, going on in each and every classroom in our schools to determine airflow. It's my understanding they're reaching out to a company that has consultants. You know, there is a lot of work going on in the buildings that hasn't been reported out yet. So I'm looking forward to that report because I don't want anyone in our community to think that we would ever want to send our kids back to a building that's not safe. Same with our teachers, anybody. You know, I think we're all on the same page about wanting to be as safe as possible. So I'm looking forward to hearing that report before we make the decision, and know that the community is going to hear that report before we make our decision, as well as a report from our public health director on what the status is of Gloucester and the data and the COVID. So I just want to know there is work going on, and looking forward to hearing that before we make our decision.
Kathy?
Yeah, I also wanted to thank everyone who has written to us and those who spoke tonight. I especially appreciate students who have used their voices as they have in so many other important topics in our town. So we really appreciate, because you folks are the ones being directly impacted by any decision we make, and we're here to educate kids, and we definitely like to hear from the students in addition to parents and the teachers. Thank you.
Thank you. I would just like to thank everybody for their opinions and making them clear to us. We've got a lot on our plates to try to digest, and there's still a lot of things that we don't know the answers to, that we're still waiting on information. And you know, there are a lot of concerns. There are a lot of things that we need to have verified. And we will do our due diligence to try to make the best decision we can. But I will just reiterate that the decision that gets made on Wednesday is not something that's guaranteed to happen a month from now. It's saying basically that this is what we think we could do right now if things stay the same, or if perhaps we get some information that we believe to be advantageous. I think the issue of testing is a big concern. So with that being said,
Jonathan, I think the mayor has her hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Safafia, please go ahead.
Well, I'm glad someone watches out for my hand. First of all, thank you, everyone. Well, I do have some information. I talk to the Board of Health all the time. I talk to the state all the time. I talk to Secretary Sutters. I talk to a lot of these things of what's happening at the schools and mayors and stuff. You know, first of all, I don't even know why the hell we started so late. I'm sorry I said that to everyone. I mean, really, it's not like we didn't know we were going to start school. I didn't know, you know, in March we should have been discussing this. And I said it to everyone. In March, I said it. Why isn't anyone on all these Zooms? Why aren't they all participating? I've said it. I'm trying the best I can as being all of your mayors, but I'm also concerned. I don't understand. We keep saying, let's not do it now, because I'm not saying my mind's been made up or not made up. I'm still getting things done, the ventilation, the whole thing, and it's better now because we can open windows or outside. But I don't understand why December? You really think there's going to be a vaccine? And if they don't have a vaccine, do we continue until what, next year? And so I, as a mayor and city budget, school budget, the budget that's not coming, the budget we're already in the already 300,000 in the hole because we didn't plan on what the state, and the state's not done. So what happens to, okay, so the teachers explained to me maybe after, but think about this. So the teachers will do the remote. So, but that means I won't need all my custodians because the schools really won't be open unless they're going to do remote in their classrooms. Then I won't need the nurses because it'd only be the teachers there. Then you won't need your guidance counselors, your secretaries, your cafeteria people, your everything else. So what happens to all the staff, your bus drivers? So what happens to all of them? So in December, we find out there's nothing. There's no vaccine, nothing in the flu season. So people are getting confused between flu and COVID, and it goes more because now people aren't doing what they're supposed to do, and we don't have the testing, which we do, but it might not be rapid, but not be 100%. So, but are we going to do the ones who have that? And there's always going to be something. So then you expect this. Now, don't get me wrong, because I've had the city also working, and the city clerk's office is Vital Records, who's never shut down and can't be shut down and worked all the time. So what do? Do I start looking at furloughs for both sides because we have to do something? So I need some help here. You know, this COVID didn't come with a book. COVID didn't come with a learning process, and COVID hasn't not gone on vacation. And I don't know if you trust the rest of it. I don't know why politics became involved, but to me, it's a disease. It's an unknown disease. It is an invisible disease. It's up to really us to really try to protect ourselves, yes. But what do we do as a city to continue to run, function, and be an open city when in December there isn't a vaccine, and how do we continue this? And that's what we need to look at. And that's what we also need to figure out. We need to sit down and talk, because I don't want to say, okay, we're doing this for 3 months and then we come back again to the same thing. We need to think of, what are we going to do? What do we need? What do we need to do to make sure we're different? Because we are. We don't have the same numbers as everyone else. We are testing our water. And I don't want wastewater, okay? I'm going to say it. We're testing our, we did it before anyone else hasn't even done it. We were tracing before everyone even knew what the word tracing was. The school nurses, thank you so much. They jumped on the city side 100%. We've done so much because we work together. Let's continue to work together and find a plan that's going to benefit us all. Because what you decide also on the school side, I also have to decide on the city side. Now this year, I wasn't like every other schools and everyone else. We did it how we did it together. I didn't lay off and I didn't furlough, but I can't guarantee that either. So let's work together, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Safaviya. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Oh, second.
Okay. Maria, can we have a roll call vote?
Ms. Prince,
Yes.
Mayor Taken,
Yes.
Ms. Watson,
Yes.
Ms. Weason,
Yes.
Kathy Clancy,
Yes.
Mr. Favazza,
Yes.
and Chairman Pope.
Yes. So I'd like to thank you all. I'd like to thank all the principals and department heads for being here and being available. Good evening. The meeting is adjourned.